Today, is real estate actually cheap? Is it adequately priced? Or is it overpriced? I think you're going to be surprised with a lot of things you never considered before, because to many, housing doesn't feel like a relative bargain when you see how its price has escalated these past few years. Beyond higher housing prices, with higher interest rates piling on too, the monthly payments have shot up these past few years. Well, watch this video until the end and prepare to get a more broad perspective beyond just what you've seen in your area or even other areas these past few years on how real estate prices could be considered cheap today in the United States. Hi, I'm Keith Weinhold, Get Rich Education founder, Forbes Real Estate Council member, and longtime real estate investor. There are a lot of ways to approach the question about whether today's U.S. real estate is cheap, adequately priced, or overpriced. So let's approach them. But look, when you consider price, there's one key word that I haven't said yet, but has your mind already jumped ahead and thought in terms of what's actually a terribly flawed way to measure this, called dollars. The median home price is easily over $400K today, pretty much however you slice it. But let's not be quick to forget that when you're looking for a measuring stick to determine value, dollars are an exceedingly poor way to track value because the dollar itself is constantly losing value. So we've got to adjust for this first, because a dollar, it's lost about 97% of its value over the past century, and then the dollar's slow and steady debasement has turned into a rapid debasement and dilution of your purchasing power with higher inflation just these past few years. Dollars keep getting so relentlessly debased, well then of course it would take substantially more of these dollars to buy most anything today than it did, say, 3 years ago, whether that's a car or tomatoes or toothpaste or property. Well, for millennia, gold has had enduring value, and it's been a loose barometer for inflation all this time. As the dollar goes down, it takes more of them to buy the same amount of gold. So rather than pricing the home in dollars, wouldn't it make more sense to use the home price to gold ratio? So let's do that. Compare home prices to how much gold it takes to buy a home over time. Today, it takes about 40% fewer ounces of gold to buy a median home than the long-term average going all the way back to 1889. Today's homes are selling at a discount relative to an enduring valued commodity across cultures like this. And intrinsically, you already know this. I mean, this is precisely why the car that you own today costs more dollars than your grandparents' first home did. So it's imperative to cancel out dollars in order to have a good discussion. Now let's look at this again. That's a statistic set right there. In the past 130 plus years, when you take the long-term average of how much gold it takes to buy a median single-family home, realize how special this is. What you're seeing now is the value of two of the most popular real assets relative to each other. All right, so home prices now appear low since it takes just about 60% as much gold to buy a home today. Another way to say that is it's 40% less. But is this in itself enough evidence to say that real estate is cheap today? No. It's a powerful touch point, but let's do more than that. We need to do more than that because, see, your income is paid in dollars. You're not paid in gold. It takes a greater percentage of your income, which is denominated in dollars, to buy a home today than it did, say, 10 years ago. But for many, you've got to look beyond income. You have both assets and income. Look at how much your assets have appreciated since the bottom of the global financial crisis of 2008. Nearly all markets have been way up since then. The S&P 500 is up 600 to 700% just since then. Yeah, it's more than 6x'd. Now, let's not consider every place on the globe. Of course, small areas with concentrated wealth, they have home prices that are astoundingly higher than the US, like Hong Kong and Singapore, South Korea, Switzerland, Luxembourg. That's not a fair comparison, but even large, well-developed nations that are similar to the US, from Australia to Canada, well, even they have higher home prices. Canadian home prices are still from 50% more than US homes to nearly double the price. We're talking about the same size and quality US home. Yes, right next door in Canada. And yet the United States has nearly 10 times the population of Canada on a smaller land area and with better employment and income opportunities than Canada. I mean, you can make the case that US home prices should be much higher than Canada's, but instead they're way lower. Now, let's turn it back to the US. We got to consider an important word: affordability. All right, we've got some wage growth today, which often lags home price growth, and your wage growth, that often even lags inflation until the latter part of an inflationary cycle. But let's look at what really happens. We've been talking about price, but most people actually don't buy a property based on its overall price as much as its monthly payment, especially the going rate on that 30-year fixed rate mortgage. Today's mortgage rates, although they don't actually feel low because they were held artificially low for so long, many years ago, realize that mortgage rates long run average is 7.7%. That's per Freddie Mac. So rates aren't high today. They're higher than the all-time lows, of course. And this is another important measure of how real estate prices in America today, they don't actually appear so overpriced. Now, I'm going to turn the prism another direction here so that the sunlight strikes it differently. Because we still haven't adjusted for something extremely important when you're valuing real estate or you're valuing anything that you've ever bought or owned in your entire life, let's look at the attribute of quality. Yes, we need to adjust for quality, and this is where value enters the discussion, not just price. What are you actually getting for what you pay for in a home today? Now, since 1889, an ounce of gold is still the same ounce of gold, okay? It's physical properties. They really haven't changed one bit since 1889, which is one reason why it's a good measuring stick, and that's why I brought it up earlier. But then in 1889, look at real estate. I mean, it has changed to an astounding degree. More than a century ago, a new home, it could have been a Victorian-style home then, it really had sparse amenities, and it averaged close to 950 square feet back then. Yeah, that was a normal-sized home back in that era. And by the way, I grew up in a Victorian-style home in Pennsylvania that was built around 1910. Today, a home averaged 2,415 square feet. So the home you're getting is 2.5 times the size, and today's home has features that would be considered unthinkable luxuries yesteryear, like air conditioning and multiple bathrooms, quartz kitchen countertops, and closets vast enough that you could play pickleball inside them. So you're getting more home today. And there's more with this, really, because today, with the rise of remote work, when you buy a home, you might even be getting your workplace with it, as people use Zoom and productivity tools rather than commuting. I mean, in the home of yesteryear, a 30-minute each-way commute, that might have been built into that home's functionality for all intents and purposes, and that is a bug. And today, the smartly laid out home with zero commute, that's a feature. Between today's home size and functionality, amenities, and safety features, you can make the case that you're getting 5 times more home today than you were a century ago, and perhaps even at a lower inflation-adjusted price. Now, today's homes, they are less affordable than they were 3 or 5 years ago because prices and rates are up, but the more you realize all the factors considered here and take the long view, you can increasingly validate saying that homes are adequately priced today? And yes, even have the audacity to ask the question, why are homes still so cheap in America today by a lot of measures? Oh, and you could really understand someone from outside the US asking you that question today. Well, I'd like to know, what do you think? Leave a comment here. Considering everything, is American real estate overpriced, adequately priced, or underpriced today? And join me in watching this next video. You can watch this one next.